So whenever you have a spokesperson that is as energetic, quotable, tweetable, soundbiteable, right? Like Sailor memeable, right? Like Sailor's sort of this once in a generation kind of spokesperson that transcends, what you would typically get. I make me like I'm making memes of Sailor. Like there is no second best, and so to be able to reach the humble plebs of the world that are memeing you, and then to reach, give presentations to Microsoft and to be on Squawk Box, and to speak to all the large companies, publicly traded companies, in the world. That's pretty freaking crazy. If you're a spokesperson and you're enthusiastic and you can convey your ideas in a way that are going to get people to sit up on the edge of their seat. So I want what this guy's talking about, then it's going to be really easy going.
Welcome to the Business Bitcoinization Show, the show dedicated to helping you enrich your life and grow your business with Bitcoin, the hardest money on planet Earth. I'm your host, Josh Friedeman, and our guest today is Phil, who is the founder of 21M Communications, which is a PR firm that focuses on working with Bitcoin companies. Today on the show, you're going to hear some great tips to help you get in front of the people that you want to reach. We're going to get to our interview with Phil right after this. Business owners, unlock the benefits Bitcoin has to offer your business with the Bitcoin for Business Quick Start Guide. This 27-page guide highlights the 6 ways you can grow your business with Bitcoin. Check it out in the show notes. Phil, welcome to the podcast.
Josh, great to be on here. Thanks for having me.
So I like to start off every single interview with a few questions that help us to get to know you a little bit better and give us some insight for our own lives. So you ready for these?
Let's hit it.
Question number 1 is this: when and how did you first learn about Bitcoin?
This is, for me, such an embarrassing question to answer, because I think the difference between, first learning about it is different than first hearing about it. And there's all these different stages. I initially heard about it early, like a lot of us, rejected it. But then 2017 came along, and this is the embarrassing part. At this time, I was working at a TV station, and I just remember John McAfee saying that he was going to do something to his body. I know it's a family-friendly show, so I don't want to say any bad words or anything, but he kind of said a bet that he was going to cut something off if Bitcoin didn't hit, I think it was 500,000. And at this point, I had heard about it, didn't understand it at all. And this was sort of like this meme that was going around. And he said he was going to, do this on national television. I was working at a TV station. So just a funny little bet kind of thing, decided to buy a little just to see what would happen. So McAfee got me in, started to just slowly learn about it, but didn't really, do the deep dive until about 2020, right? The pandemic came along, and that's really what sent me down the full-on rabbit hole. And it's a rabbit hole you don't come back from. Once you go down that rabbit hole, there's really no turning back.
It would be interesting to know how many people have started to learn a lot about Bitcoin, really had a deep understanding of it, and then kind of came back out. Because I can't think of too many. I feel like there are a handful of people that maybe got burned early on, or joined at the top of a bull market and didn't realize what they were holding and sold it after it lost 70% or whatever. But that's interesting. I haven't thought through how many people have actually stopped believing in what Bitcoin is after really learning about it.
I personally think, well, it's just an N of one, but I've also talked to, other friends of mine at, wherever it is, BitDevs. And the interesting thing is, so 2017, when I first bought, and then I got re-engaged when the price run up, it was going up again. And then, it went all the way down, but then almost that bear market forces you to be like, oh, I really have to take myself seriously now. Like I should really be able to defend why I did this. So I think it's like those low times really harden you. That's the time that's really
Mm-hmm.
meant for learning, and I think it's just a part of the process. I don't know. Maybe a lot of people
Yeah.
go through the same thing.
So question number 2 is, what's an insight or fact about Bitcoin that you wish everyone understood?
Gonna go with something non-technical here. I think it's that Bitcoin has no marketing department, right? There's no media department. There's no central figure. I know our parents think that we work for Bitcoin, and in a way, that's kind of poetic and true. And I say that because every person can make a contribution to Bitcoin in some way, shape, or form. There's this running joke that we have too many Bitcoin podcasts and
Mm.
whatever. I 100% disagree. I think we need more podcasts. I think we need more people memeing. Yeah, I think we need more people writing about it, more people on TikTok. I mean, just more educators. It feels like it's crowded right now, but it's not at all. We need more. And to anyone that is thinking about how they can get involved, and there's no limit. I mean, just being on social media, Reddit, and fighting the Reddit Bitcoin forum, which can be kind of a mess these days. But there's some value that you can bring to the table, and I guarantee you that Bitcoin needs it. So I would just say emphasizing that it is completely permissionless and open. It's a welcoming, space, and yeah, just that people should get involved from day one.
Hmm. Question number 3, what's the Bitcoin resource you most recommend to other people?
So I think it kind of depends on who I'm speaking with, right? Like if I'm speaking to one of my friends that's in finance, and maybe they're a financial advisor, or I have a buddy that's a CFO of a company, I'm probably giving them Broken Money first by Lynn Alden. For a lot
Mm-hmm.
of other people and I would fall into this category, that traditionally didn't, get involved in finance, I would say a bullish case for Bitcoin. It's really like the easiest uh, on ramp to getting your bearings for Bitcoin. It's like, and I think a little longer than an hour. You can find it on YouTube. Guy Swan narrates it, and he narrates like, I swear at this point, Guy is like the internal dialogue when I think about Bitcoin, because I've listened to so many of his recordings that is just, he's a godsend. So thank you, Guy. So I'd start them off with that, and then if they've made it that far, they're probably very interested now. Then Bitcoin Standard, and if they come back for more, Sailor series with Breedlove. And if they make it through that, I mean, then they're a full on maxi at that point. And I'm giving them like lop.net. Okay, here's everything that you can all the technical stuff, everything in between, to really just get lost, right? And have
Mm-hmm.
fun from here. I'm here as a resource, but you've made it, my friend.
All right. Question number 4, beyond Bitcoin, what's a resource, tool, or idea that's been helpful to you or your work recently?
So I know you said beyond Bitcoin, but I have to say Zaprite, and
Mm.
it's just such a fantastic tool, and I consider it beyond Bitcoin too, because I think even if any type of e-commerce, any type of company, whether it's at your farmer's market, e-commerce, if you're just living in the regular world outside of Bitcoin, Zaprite is a fantastic tool. And and I went through all these different types of invoicing services, and Zaprite was, I mean, by far the easiest to use. It's so sleek. And, when I first started using it, I emailed the guys, just had a question, and Parker Lewis got back to me. And I was like, oh crap, it's Parker Lewis. Like, and I got on a call with him, and I couldn't believe that like he made himself available, since I'd watched all of his, previous, speeches, presentations at all the conferences, and have his book Gradually Then Suddenly. And that was a pretty rad moment for me. Um, But outside of Zaprite, I would just say the idea in my business with what I do with 21M Communications is that marketing is no longer about the stuff that you make, but it's about the stories that you tell. And I try and remember that every day, right? When I show up to do the work for the companies that I work with, is we're still so early that there's a lot of technical jargon that's leading, what we're going to in the market, and we want to talk about features a lot and technically, why this is better than this. But at the end of the day, if we're trying to reach new audiences, we need to be focused on the benefits, right? And how is this going to make your life easier, or whatever pain point this is there is? How does this help solve that? So it's so easy to get lost in the weeds of the technical stuff, and it's so important. But knowing that, how do we kind of think creatively about how to communicate why these technical ideas are important, but in a way that anybody can understand? So it's just an idea that I try and remember.
So now we have our final, what we call our arbitrary but insightful question, and it's this: as a general life principle, is it better to ask why or why not? This
is a really tough one. Yeah, I don't know, but I'm not going to fence it. I'm going to give you an answer. So why would be more of the introspection, right? Like, okay, what is the purpose behind doing this? What does this mean? Why not is, Leroy Jenkins. Let's just go for it. Let's take action. I'm a thinker. I tend to overthink. I want to really plan stuff out. So I'll just say, because I know I'm like that, I'll say why not for me. Because at the end of the day, I think you have to take action. At a certain point, you can only plan so much or think so much about a certain thing and rationalize it until you just have to say, you know what, screw it. Let's just go for it and, do the work every day. So why not?
If you were hit by a bus right now, could your family access your Bitcoin? When's the right time to stop hodling and use Bitcoin to impact your family's lives, not just yours? What if Bitcoin doesn't reach the value you expect, or it takes longer to reach that value? Do you have a plan? Do you have the proper trust structure to avoid probate, maintain your privacy, and minimize taxes? Do you want to avoid taxes to stack more sats, or leverage your stack without selling? Should you add Bitcoin to your business's balance sheet? Are you truly confident in your self-custody setup? If any of those questions made you stop and think, you probably realize that simply buying and holding Bitcoin is not a complete financial plan. That's where Strong Wealth comes in. Orange-pilled advisors blending traditional financial planning with deep Bitcoin expertise, giving you the best of both worlds, so you can sleep peacefully knowing you're making the right moves for your family no matter what happens. Schedule a free call at strongwealth.net. That's strongwealth.net. Strong Wealth, wealth management for Bitcoiners by Bitcoiners. Today's episode of Business Bitcoinization is proudly brought to you by Velis Commerce, where the future of business technology meets Bitcoin. As we journey through the era of Bitcoin and its transformational impact on businesses, there's one name that stands out: Velis Commerce. Whether you're looking to build a cutting-edge website, a seamless mobile app, or custom software, Velis is your go-to team. They've been diving deep into the world of Bitcoin since 2014, making them one of the most experienced groups for integrating Bitcoin and Lightning payments into a variety of digital platforms. But here's what truly sets them apart. Velis Commerce doesn't just build. They bring a wealth of knowledge to ensure your project's success from day one. Their team understands the nuances of Bitcoin, ensuring that your business stays ahead of the curve. And for all business Bitcoinization listeners out there, Velis Commerce is offering a free consultation to kickstart your project the right way. So if you're ready to future-proof your business in the coming age of hyper-Bitcoinization, head over to veliscommerce.com or reach out on Twitter at veliscommerce. Let's make sure your business thrives in the Bitcoin era. Well, Phil, we're here today to talk about your business, 21M Communications, primarily a PR firm for companies who are somehow connected to Bitcoin. We can talk about some of the companies you've helped so far and maybe who you're looking to help in the future. But I guess the main reason I reached out to you is because I think it was probably like 2 years ago. I heard Mike Jarmuz of Lightning Ventures say we need someone who's doing Bitcoin PR. And at the time, I knew someone who'd be great on the PR side. So I reached out to him, and he didn't want to have anything to do with Bitcoin because he was sure, and I think probably still is sure, that the United States government is going to ban it because it will be too much of a threat to the US dollar.
Boy.
Things seem to be changing in that regard. And I was never really concerned about that in the first place, but he declined, and I didn't have the expertise. But I think that it's something that's very important, and I'm looking forward to learning more about what you're doing and kind of where you see the future for PR in this space, as well as what some things are that business owners should be thinking about, whether or not they have any interaction with Bitcoin on their balance sheet or accepting it. So with all that preamble, could you tell us a little bit about your business and how you guys got started?
Absolutely. And I mean, you're spot on. And Mike Jarmusch is spot on too. I've got an ongoing conversation with him. So I've spent my career in media, right? Whether that's been TV, print journalism, magazines, digital, and then the agency world, right? Comms and PR agency. And what I learned in the agency world, working with, all of the crypto companies out there and having the privilege to work with a few Bitcoin companies as well, is, one, it was hard for me to keep doing that. And I saw an opportunity to really be a first mover to do Bitcoin only communications and PR. Bitcoiners want to work with other Bitcoiners, right? When you're working with a crypto agency or a tech agency, you're working with folks that likely don't even really care about Bitcoin, right? Maybe they actually own a little, but they don't understand it. But they're also handling like 10 other accounts. And at the end of the day, they're just trying to get what they need complete to move on to the next account. So I wanted to do something specifically catered to Bitcoin companies that I understand it at a foundational level to the point that we know it's going to change the world, right? So having someone that you can work with that understands the media, understands how to position your product or service, in a way that's going to resonate with the reporters we're pitching and the podcasts, and of course, finally the end consumer at a price point really that was going to make sense, because Bitcoin is so underfunded. It's a joke. Right. All that capital goes to crypto companies because of the model of venture capitalists being able to, pump up those crypto tokens and then, exit out of it. So there's this gap right now, and the funding will come, right? You have fantastic venture capitalists out there, like 1031 being one of them, Ego Death Capital, Lightning Ventures. But there's still this gap between, where we are today and where we're going to be in a few years, I think. And I wanted to fill that gap and be able to offer a really, like turnkey service at a really affordable price, considering where Bitcoin funding is today. And man, at the end of the day, it's really all just about orange pilling the media so that we can orange pill the world, and working with these Bitcoin companies to make that happen.
I'm curious to know where you see the biggest opportunities, or maybe the need for better PR. I mean, yeah, it's probably easy to like call out companies. I don't really want to do that, but just like broadly speaking, what are some areas that you feel like a lot of companies could/should be improving when it comes to their PR?
Any type of milestone, really. I mean, you see all these kind of shoot from the hip announcements that go out on Twitter or X, and that could be some type of, product update. And, it's oftentimes a product update might not be, appeasing, or, I don't know, the media might not really want to see that, but it depends. So, I see so many different just tweets that go out. I'm like, you know what? I know a reporter that would have loved to see that, learned about this news before it went live on X. I probably know a few that could have done something with that. And then all of a sudden, on the day that you're, putting that out there on Twitter, you have multiple reporters talking about it at the same time, right? whether that's even like a little bit of funding or like some type of milestone, some new product update, even like a new hire, right? Like if you have someone that's coming over from the traditional finance world that's now working for you, anything that you have going on at the company is an opportunity to make a splash, right? And there's different strategies of doing that, based off of what it is. But I would just say probably the mistake is not having a complete hold on that timeline and looking at it and giving it a serious shot and saying, what can we do to be creative about driving more attention behind this? Because if you're not doing that, you're likely going to miss opportunities. And then downstream of that, you're going to miss new customers.
So when it comes to a major announcement, whether it's hiring a new product, whatever else it might be, how long should businesses be planning and preparing for that? And I think you've just said that you feel like there's not as much preparation for that as there should be. Is that because it seems like companies aren't thinking far enough in advance, or they just don't know the right steps to take to make that splash?
I think they don't understand the right steps, right? So you have to revisit those things on a weekly basis. Where is the ball at all time, right? Because in any given announcement, especially if it's technical in nature, you need back end stuff, front end stuff, and so that can shift timelines, drastically. And so when that keeps changing, you're like, well, let's just get it out. Let's get it out on Tuesday because we have it done now. You probably need someone in the room to say, hey, let's slow down. And, is this a realistic date? Maybe a week after that, we just make sure things are squared away so that we put not only best possible product out there, but we're coordinated in our comms, right? The announcements getting scheduled, on the wire at the same time that reporters are breaking, the news, and then you've shared it with, newsletters or your community, whatever it is. So then it just, looks better, right? It looks clean. And because things change so much, it's something that does, like, as I mentioned, need to be looked at on a weekly basis. But if there's let's say there's a funding announcement that's going to, be coming down the pike, minimum, let's have that for like a month. Okay, so backdate that a month because you need to draft the announcement, which is what I would do, right? That announcement needs to be approved by everyone at that company, but then the investors, right? Legal needs to look at that. That could take a couple weeks, right? Sometimes longer. And then when you pitch the media, you want to put yourself in the reporter's shoes, right? They need time to evaluate if something is newsworthy or not, right? They're getting pitched, dozens of emails a day. And then they need time to get back to you, have an interview with the spokesperson, and they need time to draft that feature story. And, if you're only giving them, a few days, like, hey, we've got this big funding news, it's going out tomorrow, are you interested? That's not going to really develop a great relationship with that reporter. It's not going to make their life easier. You want to help them win at their company, right? So that in the future too, it's easier to go back to that reporter. You have a relationship with them. They can come to you when they have questions because they know you're the subject matter expert in your industry, and everyone's happy, right? And then it looks good. So a month minimum, I'd say, is probably the good rule of thumb. And I've been tinkering around with a presentation I can give to like different bit devs throughout the US of, hey, you might be a Bitcoin startup and you maybe don't have the funding right now, but here's what you can do in-house to just do the best practices and help yourself. So I'm getting close to that, and I think that's a 2025 goal for me.
And when it comes to reaching out to someone who could write an article for you, would that also take what's the usual timeline? We're talking a couple of weeks. How long do people tend to write stories before they're ready to go out? / how much preparation or time do they need for a tip?
Yeah, I like to give 10 working days, just 2 weeks. You don't always get it at the first pitch, right? So you have to factor in if you're pitching on a Monday and a Friday are historically, horrible days to reach out, right? So your money days, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, you want that announcement to go live as well on a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday for that reason. So when you think of it, you really only like have those 6 money days of pitching, excluding Mondays and Fridays and the weekends. So say you pitch them on a Monday, but you don't hear back for a few days. You reach back out to Wednesday or Thursday, and then they say they want to do it, but tomorrow's a Friday. Maybe they want to hop on an interview. The interview gets pushed to Monday or Tuesday of next week. And then you've only got a couple days for that reporter to write that feature. So you can see how it all just gets jumbled up pretty quickly. Best practice: give them 10 business days. Start pitching on that 10 or 9. Start pitching on that Monday, and then have the announcement go live on the Thursday after that.
Perfect. So 2025 is going to be a big year for Bitcoin, as far as we can tell. Is this that? I mean, I'm guessing that anytime you have something to announce, it's a good time to announce it.
Yeah.
But thinking years into the future, would you say that promoting something during a bull run is the best time, or during a bear market? Because obviously you have more people interested in Bitcoin when the price is soaring, but you also have a lot more noise to compete with. How should a business owner think about how to balance those two factors?
That's a great question. And I would say this: that we're working with the announcements right now, but thought leadership never sleeps, right? So whether it's a bull or a bear market, or there's gaps in between announcements that companies are going to have. So what do you do to fill that gap, right? And so that's when you see quote placements in media about price movement, broadcast TV interviews, you name it, any type of mention in an article. That's all the work that we do on the back end to make sure that we're putting our spokespeople in a position to get consistent brand recognition through the quote placements and feature interviews, regardless of any type of announcement that they have. And so how do they do that? Well, one, you have to be a good listener, right? Or probably a little bit crazy too, like me, where you're plugged into the media all the time, checking in with reporters to see what they're working on and to see if any of my resources can be of help to them. Finding trends that are, bubbling up that aren't really being covered right now in the media, and working with my spokesperson to say, hey, we see this happening. Do you have an opinion on it? Can you give me a few sentences, or can I draft a few sentences for you to share with this reporter, or even a few bullet points, so we can maybe get them on a call and help you make sense of this for them, because it's coming down the pike and we can help them get ahead of it and write a really good article. So doing those types of things are really where, that's the snowball effect. Right? You can get a lot of announcement coverage at once, and that's great. That's the easiest way to do it. But getting those consistent quote placements and features, because you're being a source for that reporter and building that relationship, that really, once you get that snowball rolling downhill, it's hard to stop. And then you start getting inbounds that we manage. Okay, you've got people that love what you have to say. Let's connect you and do it that way. So going back to your original question, which I'm trying to remember right now.
Yeah, really. It's like, is it better to try to get out there during the bull market when there's a lot of interest / when it's a bear market and there's not much noise?
For sure. So in a bear market, if you're doing a raise announcement, it's going to be newsworthy if it's like 2 million, right? Which is a low number. If you're let's just say for like, the Fortunes of the world or the Bloombergs of the world, New York Times, it's a low number for that type of media. In the bull market, I think TechCrunch was only, last time I checked, doing things that were covering raises that were north of like 15 million or something. So. But there's ways to get around that, right? So if you have that gap and you're like, the bar is higher when you're pitching, like say a raise announcement, but I really want to go for that mainstream financial media, then is there a way that I can incentivize this outlet or this reporter? Is there a good story that we can tell in addition to this raise amount? Like, what are we doing with this money? Is there a human interest story around that, or is there a broader economic story? What can we say that's going to move the needle above and beyond that number? But additionally, would it help if we offered an exclusive? Okay, we know we just want to get this outlet, right? That's our dream. Well, let's offer them an exclusive. Hey, you will be the only reporter to, have the rights to break this news. Okay. And then once the news goes live, and you want to give them a bit of a buffer, like 5 hours or so after the news goes live, to then do day of outreach and pitching all the reporters that you would have pitched anyway, and driving day of coverage and week of coverage, then that's how you'd go about that. Your question is really getting me thinking about a lot of these things. I have a lot to say about. I'll try and bite my lip on some of it, but I would say, because if you're going to boil it down to like a binary between a bear and a bull, I would say a bull market is really the best time, right? Because everyone's paying attention, right? They're getting readers and listeners to their podcasts that are now, because of price movement, actually probably asking more about Bitcoin. Why aren't you guys covering Bitcoin more? Oh, I saw this. Why didn't you talk about that? So maybe the organizations are getting some more pressure, at least, to have, a higher share of Bitcoin coverage within, the overall outlet that they offer. So bull market is fantastic, but bear market's great too, to, build stuff, make a lot of noise when no one else is really, really paying attention, even though they should be.
Do you find that as companies start putting themselves out there more, then people start actively pursuing the ability to cover, or pursuing leads from that organization? And the reason that I ask is because on a previous podcast, I've not experienced this with business Bitcoinization, because it's a much more niche podcast. But previously, I had a podcast that was focused on leadership, and early on, I started going to Amazon, finding leadership books that were going to be coming out, and reaching out to the authors or publishers. And pretty quickly, I developed a bunch of different publicists that were reaching out to me, pitching all sorts of new books. I know it's different when you have a podcast, when you have a business, but if you start putting yourself out there, I guess, does it become easier over time to get information out into the world because you have these relationships already?
100%. It can get overwhelming, right? To the point where you need to be ready for that. Okay. So if you're going to go have start making a voice for the company and for yourself, doing the podcasts, the broadcast interviews, the features that are written about you, right? Having somebody that's going to help you manage that is, paramount to being successful. And then it gets to a point where there's a bit of reputation management, right? Early on, you can sort of just say, whatever you want to say and get your attention. And then, once all eyes are on you, that can kind of change a little bit, right? So being able to tweak that, you even see it with Saylor, right? The way he speaks about custody right now, right? Whereas before he was talking about self-custody, he's like, you could, good luck. I lost him in a boating accident. And now he's saying that, self-custody is, I don't want to, try and quote him and get it wrong, but he's saying things against self-custody. That's probably some legal stuff there, but he was also, early on, speaking to a different audience than he's speaking to now, right? So your messaging is going to change. How can you keep that messaging authentic, but, walk a line there sometimes, depending on who the audience is. But yeah, and I would say it's a snowball effect, but once you get it rolling downhill, it's something that just doesn't seem to stop. And yeah, you got to be ready to field the inbounds and, have the structures in place to make the most of that.
So speaking of MicroStrategy, they are obviously the largest company that is connected to Bitcoin. I'm curious to know your thoughts on their PR approach. Like, how would you grade them across the last few years?
A plus. I mean,
A plus.
you have, so whenever you have a spokesperson that is as, what's the word, energetic, quotable, tweetable, soundbiteable, right? Like Sailor, memeable, right? Like Sailor's sort of this once in a generation kind of spokesperson that transcends, what you would typically get. I make me like I'm making memes of Sailor. Like there is no second best, and so to be able to reach the humble plebs of the world that are memeing you, and then to reach, like give presentations to Microsoft, and to be on Squawk Box, and to speak to all the large companies, publicly traded companies, in the world. That's pretty freaking crazy. You think about being able to bridge that gap. And I think the lesson there is enthusiasm, right? If you're a spokesperson and you're enthusiastic and you can convey your ideas in a way that are going to like get people to sit up on the edge of their seat, so I want what this guy's talking about, then it's going to be really easy going. I know you asked about their PR strategy, but sometimes you just have a good spokesperson like that that's doing the interviews and it's kind of catching on. That's all it really takes.
So when it comes to the small business owner listening to this podcast right now, or maybe a Bitcoin startup, founder, CEO, whoever else listening to this podcast, what would you recommend beyond reaching out to you at 21M Communications if they want to outsource some of this stuff or have a partner? What would you recommend for them to do to make sure that they capitalize on this moment as we head into what seems like is going to be a pretty impressive bull run in the next year or so?
So another fantastic question. The one thing that you cannot escape with the media is that they love to talk about price, right? Especially broadcast media. You're only going to get onto broadcast if you're willing to talk about price. They're going to ask you what the price is going to do in 1 hour. Okay. You don't need to have an answer. That's a joke. You don't need to have an answer for what it's going to do in 1 hour, but you don't need to know that, but you need to know how to pivot and be able to, zoom out and talk about your longer term price predictions. It's not fun. We don't want to talk about that. We know it's going up forever, but anyway, I would say two things, actually probably more than two things, but the first of which is today, like just get a Google Doc open, put announcements or community updates on that Google Doc. Make a long list of those things that you might have coming up. I don't care how non-newsworthy you might think it is. Put it on there, huge master list, put a tentative date, even if it's a month, and then just consistently revisit that and try to plan ahead of it in drafting an announcement, setting a hard date and time for that once you get close enough to be able to do that. And then even if it's just after you do that, if you don't want to, spend your time finding all the reporters it could be relevant for, you can pitch, Bitcoin Magazine, you can pitch Bitcoin News, you can pitch some of the crypto outlets as well. And, it might take you just a few emails to hopefully, get some coverage. Can't guarantee it, but it is worth aiming for that, especially, in the bull market right now. Start practicing social listening. Find reporters, right, that are covering Bitcoin or covering the area that you want to like branch off into. If it's cybersecurity, right, if you're like a hardware device and you're like, well, like we custody Bitcoin, but it's really about privacy in general, then branch out, think about cybersecurity, find those reporters that, you want to make relationships with, follow them on X, set notifications. When they tweet something, engage with it, build the relationship, right? Make that a habit. Price movement, like if there's reporters that cover price, put together, find it doesn't need to be the CEO, right? But find the guy in the company that is willing to speak about price. Get him to write a few sentences for you, And then you can use it yourself. You can attribute it to yourself if that person's okay with that. They don't want to be in the spotlight. Send that off to the reporters that are covering price. They want that. They want feedback. They want to understand what it means for the industry, what it means for your business. So, talk about the price and where you see it going and what it means for other startups in the space. Start writing, right? So start writing editorial content, non-promotional content where you're not talking about your company, but you have an opinion, right? Any kind of post that you'd put on X that's kind of like a hot take, you could probably turn that into 800 words, right? If you really thought about it, put some meat on the bones. You can do that. You can either just start putting the content on your website, but crypto outlets, Bitcoin Magazine, Forbes, there's a lot of outlets out there that would accept that kind of opinion editorial content, and you can be building your thought leadership that way. So that's what I would say. I would say get a hold of your announcement timeline, so you can plan ahead of it. Start listening to the reporters, the podcasts that you want to make connections with, be proactive in trying to build that relationship. Putting yourself out there as a resource for them, and start, writing content and getting that out there as well. And I think if you can do those three things and just be consistent with it, every week, 1 or 2 touch points a day, then you can be successful.
Great. And Phil, where can people go to keep up with you and 21M if they're interested in that for either now or in the future?
Well, you can go to 21mcommunications.com, or you can email me at phil@21mcommunications.com, or Twitter, 21mcoms. You can find me there, Noster on there as well. And I hope you do reach out. Even if you're not, I would say, even if you're not in a position to, invest in media, reach out to me. I'm happy to answer any questions you have and lend my advice, because when Bitcoin companies win, we all win. So it's we're in this together, and I just can't believe that we have the opportunity to be alive right now and really harness all this energy. The future is really bright.
Indeed. Well, Phil, thank you so much for your time today. It's been a pleasure.
Josh, appreciate you. Thanks so much for having me.
Well, friends, it's a wrap. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Business Bitcoinization Show. If you want to reach out to either me or Phil, you can find those links down in the show notes. And be sure to reach out to 21M Comms when you're ready to take your business to the next level. As always, keep building, keep growing, and until next time, keep living and leading well.